Most people have wealth manifestation completely backwards. They think they need to be rich before they can feel rich. Wait for the money to arrive, and then allow themselves to feel abundant. And as long as they keep waiting, because the order is reversed. You don't feel rich after you become rich. You feel rich first, and then becoming rich is what naturally happens next. This isn't a clever spiritual trick. It's the actual mechanics of how wealth shows up in someone's life. The feeling comes first. The money follows. Always in that order. Never the reversed. Tonight, you're going to learn how to feel rich now, regardless of what your bank account currently says, not as fantasy, not as denial, as the actual practice that makes wealth inevitable in your life. Because here's the truth almost no one teaches. The rich aren't rich because they got the money. They're rich because they cultivated a wealth consciousness long before the money arrived, and the money came because the consciousness was already there. You can do the same thing, right now. Starting in this moment, feel rich tonight and be rich soon, because the law that creates wealth has never failed anyone who actually learned to feel it first. Here's what people miss about wealth. It exists as a state of consciousness long before it exists as a number in an account. The state of being wealthy is something you can occupy right now, with nothing in your bank account but enough for tonight's dinner. Because wealth, as a state, isn't determined by your balance. It's determined by your felt relationship with money, abundance, and your own worth. You can have $10 million and feel poor. People do, all the time. Their consciousness is broken even though their accounts are full. They feel anxious about money, scarce, never enough, and so they manifest more reasons to feel that way, regardless of the numbers. Or you can have very little and feel rich, settled, at ease, confident that money flows naturally to you, and from that state, money does start flowing. Because consciousness creates reality, and a wealthy consciousness creates a wealthy reality. So stop treating wealth like a number you have to reach before you can feel it. Treat it like a state you can occupy right now, and then occupy it faithfully until the visible world catches up to confirm what you've already been feeling. This is how wealth actually works, the state first, the numbers second. And once you understand this, the entire game changes. Let me describe what feeling rich actually feels like, because most people get this wrong. It doesn't feel like excitement, it doesn't feel like adrenaline, it doesn't feel like the thrill of imagining wealth arriving. Feeling rich feels calm, quietly, deeply calm. The kind of calm that comes from knowing you're taken care of, from not having to grip every dollar with anxiety, from not making decisions out of financial fear. Feeling rich feels generous, loose, open-handed, not stingy, not tight. The wealthy person doesn't agonize over small expenses. They give freely, they tip well, they spend without panic, because they trust there's more where that came from. Feeling rich feels expansive, spacious. When you imagine your future, there are no ceilings on it, no walls. You can dream big without immediately collapsing into, but how could that ever happen for me? Feeling rich feels ordinary. This is the part most people don't expect. It's not a peak emotional state, it's just your normal way of being, as ordinary as breathing. This is the felt experience you want to cultivate. Calm, generous, expansive, ordinary, not exciting, just the natural inner state of someone for whom wealth is simply part of who they are. If you want to feel rich, you have to stop talking like a poor person, out loud and especially in your head. Every time you say, "I can't afford that," you're reinforcing lack. Every time you say, "Money is tight," you're declaring scarcity. Every time you say, "I'm broke," you're confirming poverty as your identity. These aren't innocent statements. They're powerful declarations to your consciousness about who you are, and consciousness responds by manifesting more of exactly what you've declared. The wealthy person doesn't speak this way. They might say, "I'm choosing not to spend on that right now," or "That's not where I'm directing my money this month," but they don't declare themselves broke. They don't make poverty their identity. Start watching your speech, both internal and external. Notice every time you reinforce a poor identity through your words. And start replacing those statements with the language of someone who is already wealthy in consciousness. Not affirmations. Just natural speech that reflects an abundant inner state. Money flows to me easily. I always have what I need. Everything works out financially. Said calmly, not desperately. Your words shape your state, and your state shapes your wealth. So speak like someone who is already rich, and your consciousness will begin to match what you're saying. Here's a practice that shifts wealth consciousness fast. Spend like someone wealthy. I don't mean spend money you don't have. I mean change how you relate to the money you do have. When you buy something, don't agonize over it. Make the decision and move on. The wealthy person doesn't replay every purchase in their mind for hours afterward. They decide, they buy, they're done. When you tip, tip generously. Not because you're trying to perform wealth, but because the wealthy person doesn't grip small amounts of money. They give freely because there's always more. When you pay bills, pay them without resentment. Wealthy people don't feel drained by bills. They simply pay them and continue with their day, because there's always more money coming. These small shifts in how you spend train your consciousness to occupy a different state. You start to feel wealthy through the way you handle money, even before the amount in your account has changed. This isn't about being financially reckless. It's about not bringing the tight, anxious energy of poverty to every financial decision. Spend like someone who knows there's always more, because the more you act like that person, the more you become that person. You're not as poor as you think you are. And until you can appreciate what you already have, you'll never feel rich, no matter how much you accumulate. Look around your life right now. What do you already have that countless people would consider wealth? A roof over your head, food in your kitchen, clothes in your closet, a device you're using to access this lecture. These aren't given to everyone. They're forms of wealth, and you have them. The rich consciousness doesn't focus on what's missing. It appreciates what's present. It notices abundance everywhere, in the small comforts, the daily blessings, the simple resources most people overlook. When you appreciate what you have, you signal to your consciousness that you're someone who recognizes wealth. And consciousness gives more wealth to those who recognize it. This isn't sentimental, it's mechanical. So practice noticing. Every day, notice things you have that represent abundance. The hot water, the full pantry, the car that works. All the small forms of wealth that make up your daily life. The more you appreciate, the more your consciousness identifies as wealthy. And the more wealthy your consciousness becomes, the more visible wealth will follow. Appreciation is the gateway. Use it. If you check your bank account multiple times a day, you're sabotaging your wealth consciousness. Every check is an inquiry. Has it changed yet? Is there more? Am I still poor? And each inquiry reinforces the anxious, scarcity-based relationship with money that's been keeping you stuck. The wealthy person doesn't obsessively check their account. They have a general sense of their finances, and they live their life. They're not constantly scanning for proof of scarcity or abundance. They just operate from the assumption that they're financially fine. Try this experiment. For 1 week, check your account only when you absolutely need to. Not for reassurance, not for anxiety. Only when you need to know a specific number for a specific reason. You'll notice something. Your relationship with money starts to relax. The constant low-level financial anxiety begins to dissolve, and in its place, a quieter, more confident relationship with abundance begins to develop. This relaxation is the doorway, because wealth consciousness can only develop when you're not constantly scanning for evidence of its absence. Step away from the account. Let yourself feel financially okay without checking, and your consciousness will begin to occupy the state where financial okayness is your default. Here's something that accelerates wealth consciousness more than almost anything else. Give before you feel ready to. Not large amounts, small ones, a tip slightly larger than you'd usually give, a small donation, a gift to a friend who'd appreciate it, an amount that requires you to relax your grip on money slightly. When you give from where you currently are, you're declaring to your consciousness, I have enough. There's always more. I'm not desperate to hold on to every dollar. This declaration is more powerful than any affirmation, because actions speak to consciousness in a way words can't match. When you give, even modestly, you embody abundance. You demonstrate to yourself that you trust the flow. This isn't about virtue or generosity in some moral sense. It's a practical tool for rewiring your wealth consciousness. The person who can give freely is in a different state than the person who grips tightly, and the state of giving freely attracts more to flow in. So practice, not big gestures. Just small acts of releasing money without anxiety, and notice how your inner state shifts as you do. This is wealth consciousness in action, not theory, not visualization, actual demonstration to yourself that you're not someone trapped by lack. The most powerful time to cultivate wealth consciousness is right before sleep, because the state you carry into sleep gets impressed deeply into your subconscious. So as you fall asleep tonight, feel rich. Don't think about how to make money. Don't worry about bills. Just occupy the calm, settled, generous state of someone who has more than enough. Imagine an ordinary moment as that wealthy version of you, pouring coffee in a beautiful kitchen, walking through your home, looking at your day with the calm certainty of someone who's financially safe. You don't need to make this dramatic. You don't need to picture mansions or yachts, just the felt experience of being someone who doesn't worry about money. That's the state, that's what gets impressed. Sleep in that feeling. Let it be the last thing in your awareness as you drift off. Your subconscious will work with it all night, integrating it, making it more familiar, slowly turning it into your default state. Do this every night. It's one of the most efficient things you can do for your wealth consciousness. 5 minutes of feeling rich before sleep, compounded over weeks and months, will transform your inner relationship with money more than any other single practice. One thing that destroys wealth consciousness faster than almost anything else is comparison, especially upward comparison. You scroll social media, you see someone's vacation, their new car, their effortless-looking lifestyle, and suddenly the wealth you were starting to feel evaporates, replaced by the painful awareness of how much they have and you don't. This destroys your consciousness because you've just measured yourself against an external standard, found yourself lacking, and confirmed to your inner experience that you're behind. And consciousness will reflect that comparison back to you as continued lack. You have to stop comparing up, not by pretending other people don't have more, but by refusing to let their wealth define your sense of self. Their wealth is their wealth. It has nothing to do with you. Your wealth, or your wealth consciousness, is yours, independent, self-contained, not measured against anyone else's. Focus on your own inner state, cultivate your own wealth consciousness, and let other people have whatever they have without using it as evidence of what you're missing. This single shift will protect your wealth consciousness more than almost any other practice, because what destroys it most often isn't external circumstances, it's comparison. When you feel rich, you don't need to know exactly when the money will arrive. You just trust that it will. The wealthy consciousness has patience, not desperate, anxious patience, calm, settled patience. The kind that comes from knowing the universe is faithful and that what you've claimed in consciousness will manifest in time. This trust is part of the wealth state itself. You can't feel truly rich while urgently needing money by a specific deadline. That urgency cancels the state. So trust the timing. The money will come when it comes. Your job isn't to figure out when. Your job is to maintain the state of being rich, calmly, consistently, without needing to know exactly how the visible manifestation will unfold. This requires faith, and the faith is part of what creates the manifestation, because consciousness responds to settled certainty, not anxious demand. So let go of the timing question. Stop asking, when will I be rich? Start being rich now, trusting that the visible world will eventually catch up. And it will, because it always does, when the inner state is genuinely held long enough. Here's where we land tonight. You don't need to wait to feel rich. You don't need permission from your bank account. You don't need external evidence before you allow yourself to occupy the state of wealth. You can feel rich now, tonight, in this very moment, calm, generous, expansive, ordinary, the settled inner experience of someone who has more than enough. And as you feel rich now, you set in motion what makes you rich soon. Because consciousness creates reality, and the consciousness of wealth must eventually produce the visible wealth that matches it. So start tonight. Sleep in the feeling of being rich. Wake up in it. Carry it through your day. Speak from it. Spend from it. Live from it. The visible money will come, not because you forced it, because you finally embodied the state that naturally attracts it. This is wealth consciousness in its complete form, not affirmation, not visualization for hours, just the simple, settled, deliberate practice of being someone who is already rich, internally, before there's any external proof. Feel rich now. Be rich soon. That's the order. That's the law, and it works for anyone willing to do it. Tonight you begin. Feel rich now. Be rich soon. Cultivate the state before the substance, and watch as wealth finally finds its way to the version of you that has been ready for it all along.